Good afternoon to you. It's now 5:06. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Washington, D.C. still cleaning up from the mess of all of these left-wing pro-Hamas rioters who defiled the nation's capital again, attacked police officers, and burned the American flag. Joining us now to discuss all of it and so much more is Derrick Anderson. He's a Republican nominee running for Virginia's 7th Congressional District, a former Green Beret, great American veteran, and he joins us now. Derrick, good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me, brother.
I understand that you were out at Union Station last night. You saw all of this?
Yeah, I saw more of the aftermath of all of it. I saw some of the congressional members walking back, actually, after they hoisted the flag back up the pole, which, applaud them for doing that. In our nation's capital, what we saw last night was yesterday was pretty horrendous. I saw it as it was unfolding, via, social media, like many of you all probably did as well. But, we saw these protesters take the American flag down, throw it to the ground, light it on fire, and then start chanting. I mean, it hits me hard, Vince. It hits me really hard. I mean, I didn't fight for that. I spent 10 years in the Army on active duty. I wore the flag on my shoulder on many deployments, including Iraq and Afghanistan. I laid that flag on the coffins of over 150 service members in Arlington National Cemetery when I was in the old guard. I had 5 of my guys killed in Afghanistan. And, I always picture the flag on their, as they were sitting in the aircraft getting ready to be sent home. So watching that happen in our nation's capital, it hits hard to me. And, and look, I'm the biggest proponent of the First Amendment out there. Yeah. But at the end of the day, there's a difference between having the right to do something and what is right.
Well, you're allowed to hold them in judgment for very noxious views, which of course they had on display. Additionally, they're destroying government property. There are laws being violated here. They didn't bring their own American flag with them and burn it. They wouldn't spend a dime on an American flag. Instead, they destroy what isn't theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting about this is, we've even seen, Vince, we've seen some of the Democrat leaders condemn this. What's interesting in my race here in the 7th Congressional District is my opponent has been silent. He's been absolutely silent on this topic. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, we don't need more politicians in Washington, D.C. that put their finger up in the air and measure their political headwinds. Our enemies like Iran, Russia, and China are watching right now. In fact, we're seeing reports, Vince, that Iran, some of these protests are funded by Iran. Yeah. And that's insane right now, and so when we continue to see weak leadership, weak leaders, our enemies are emboldened. So the folks here in Virginia are ready for a change. They're ready for unity. They're ready for common sense, and they're ready for leaders that lead.
Yeah, we've heard a lot from the left about foreign election meddling when it comes to them thinking that Donald Trump was somehow the beneficiary of it, but not as much about Iran mobilizing riots in the streets of the United States. Why is that?
Yeah, that's because they don't have anything to run on right now. And then, what they're doing right now is horrendous. I mean, a lot of them are turning the blind eye. I don't understand why. What we saw some of those Republican congressmen and women up in D.C. doing last night when they hoisted the flag up there, I didn't see anyone from the other party. Like, I mean, I think that's a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer. Who doesn't want to go put our American flag up? I mean, all of us in the military stood in formation every morning, and we watched the flag go up every single morning, and it was awesome. I love hearing that. But, we're just not seeing that from some of these lawmakers. And again, the thing that just hits me hard is that they're silent, and they're not saying anything about it, just letting it go, hoping that it goes away, which is ridiculous.
And it's important to point out that they're burning the American flag, and that's a specific attack directed at us, meaning American citizens, including by American citizens who are stupid enough to participate in this. A lot has been said about, these are like anti-Israel protests, and they certainly are, but they're also anti-American. They're being pretty explicit about that. They're burning the American flag. They're putting hammers and sickles on the sides of these monuments, these great American monuments in front of Union Station, on a replica of the Liberty Bell. They're saying Hamas is coming. They're they're not really hiding how much they hate this country, which affords them a lot of latitude to be able to express even really stupid views.
Yeah, and I mean, let's not forget too, October 7th was only, less than a year ago. Remember after 9/11, we were still getting things together and going into Iraq and Afghanistan, and we forget that. We forget the riots and the protests that we saw at the college campuses over the last few months as well. We see this going on, and we see some of these individuals in Congress, leaders all over the place that are just silent on it. But again, when you're silent on these things, our enemies smell blood, and our enemies will exploit it. And
yes,
that's what we're seeing, Vince. We saw what Iran is doing. They are supporting these protests going on in the United States, and if that's not concerning to someone, then that's absolutely ridiculous.
One of the reasons I think people forget, Derrick Anderson, what happened and how often and how recently these things happened is because we've become so conditioned to just expect chaos in our country, haven't we? It's like the left is practically grooming the country to expect things to always be chaotic. So you go from week to week and you forget just how awful the last one was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that, what I was talking about in the beginning, Vince, I think my family lives, all throughout Virginia and in the 7th Congressional District. Yeah. I mean, they're exhausted. They're exhausted from the news just being one thing after another. I think folks in America, here in the Commonwealth, here in the 7th District, they're ready for change. They're ready for normal to be normal again, right? Yes. And I think that, elections have consequences. We've seen the consequences of the election with President Biden and Vice President Harris over the last 3.5 years. And so, this November is important. Folks need to be energized, and they need to go out and vote, because if not, this is what we're going to be seeing for another 4 years, in my opinion. Well,
your opponent in the 7th District is a fella called Eugene Vindman. He's a part of the notorious Vindman Brothers gang. These are guys who brought a lot of chaos to the country in the form of serving as the basis for a ridiculous and frivolous impeachment against President Trump when he was in office, designed to stifle and stagger his presidency. So now you're running against this guy. What's the difference between the two of you other than just the party affiliation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a clear contrast here, Vince. Mr. Vindman, his entire campaign is a shtick with President Trump. He has a revenge tour campaign against President Trump, bottom line. You look at his social media, look at what he talks about. That's all he talks about. Whereas me and my campaign are focused on the things that are affecting us here in the 7th Congressional District, right? We're talking to local business leaders. I'm talking to my family that are talking about how the fact that when they go to the grocery store, they see eggs that cost $3.75 for a dozen eggs. My mom FaceTimes me all the time, Vince. I have to admit, my mom FaceTimes me when she goes to the grocery store or at the gas pump. We're talking about the border and the fact that, it's impacting us here in the 7th District. But again, he doesn't have anything to run on. He doesn't. And so his entire campaign is focused on revenge tour against Donald Trump, where we're focused on getting our country back on track, make it more affordable, and make our community safe.
Does your mom surprise FaceTime you? Like when you least expect it, suddenly FaceTime from mom?
All the time, Vince. Come on. You think if mom's feeling the pain in Spotsylvania County, then she's going to make sure I know about it 100%.
Yeah, and she expects you to fix this all. She knows you're going to get elected, and she's already assigning you things that need to be fixed, isn't she?
Just like, I've worked in my mom's restaurants growing up before going to Virginia Tech and in the Army, and my mom has been she's been a tough one on me my entire life, and my mom knows best, and so I tell people all the time the difference between me and my opponent is that I don't have accountability. I don't get to go to Washington, D.C. and make bad decisions, because when I come back to Spotsylvania County, I'll have my entire family lined up at my house waiting for me.
Yeah.
And so accountability, I think, is more important than ever nowadays to hold our elected officials accountable for the decisions that they're making.
That's so critical. Yeah, your conscience is right there waiting for you. She's got something to tell you. That's pretty cool. You mentioned at the outset that, when you went yesterday to Union Station, you saw all this anti-American chaos and the remnants of it. You were really struck by it. But I do wonder to what extent you were angered by it. One of my reactions to the assassination attempt on President Trump, my reaction always when I see this anti-American sentiment is you can't help it. You get angry at it because for a couple of reasons. One, it's an attack on something that you hold dear, which is your country, and the country that in your case that you fought for. And the other piece is that these little twerps do not appreciate the country that they live in and the gifts that this country has bestowed upon them.
Yeah, and what was really interesting, as a matter of fact, my mom was in the car actually with me when I pulled off, locked the doors, and the trash was everywhere, Vin. Like, it really was. Like, you saw signs, you saw wagons full of trash that they had left all over the place. The graffiti was pretty insane on the statue right there at Union Station.
Yes.
There was a lot of law enforcement throughout Washington, D.C. last night. And so, it's a mixed bag of emotions for me. Like, I see it, my heart drops. I'm like, what are we doing, people? Yeah. What are we doing as a country right now? And then you do get a little angry. You want to, how can we fix this? How can we get our country back on track? And your mind just starts racing. So, it's a big mixed bag of emotions. But that's why we're doing the things that we're doing.
When you took in that site yesterday, you've got the experience of having traveled the world as a Green Beret in your prior line of work. What did our nation's capital look like yesterday as opposed to, say, some third world country?
I mean, pulling up to Union Station and seeing the trash, seeing the graffiti, there were still some of the protesters walking around with a variety of shirts and paraphernalia and what have you. There is some reminiscence of what you've seen in some of these other countries. I mean, we've all seen the images of the American flag being burned in Iran and some of these other countries. And when we're seeing it right in our nation's capital, at our footsteps, an hour north of where I live and my family lives, I mean, you're just kind of flabbergasted. You're really taken back. And again, unfortunately, and like you mentioned, Vince, like, this is not something that we've been seeing this over and over again over the last several months. And unfortunately, I know some people are getting numb to it, which is terrible. When people are getting numb to the fact that our American flag is thrown to the ground and burned, that is not a good direction for our country. Yeah.
Meanwhile, at my house, I don't let the American flag touch the floor. When we have storms outside, I have one on the side of my house. When we have storms and I'm worried that the wind's going to rip the thing off, I go out there, I take it down in the middle of the storm, and I'm gingerly walking that thing into the house, making sure it never once touches my floor. And now I've got guys in the middle of Washington, D.C. burning my flag. I just can't even stand it. Derrick Anderson, before we let you go, can you give us an update on the state of your campaign? As I mentioned, you're running against Eugene Vindman there in the 7th District. Mm-hmm. How are things going? What are you hearing on the ground, and do you have any cause for hope here? How do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely, Vince. We're really excited. Obviously the news cycle has been back and forth over the last few weeks. But talking with folks, we've been hitting the ground running. We're truly going 100 miles per hour, not taking anything for granted. And, talking to people, talking to the voters here in the 7th District to see, well, what is impacting them every single day. And I can tell you, the two things I hear over and over and over again is how much it costs to live and the issues we're facing with the border, right? I mean, just a few weeks ago, Vince, we had 2 illegal immigrants of Jordanian descent attempting to pose as Amazon drivers, trying to go through and breach the front gate at Marine Corps Base Quantico.
Yep.
I mean, that's where we're at right now. So the border is impacting us. Sheriffs are talking to me every single day about how fentanyl and overdoses are just they're every single day. So folks want to be able to be safe in their communities, and folks just want to have it affordable to live. And I don't think that's too much to ask for. So that's what people are doing. That's what we're talking about. Where, again, my opponent, he just talks about his hatred for President Donald Trump.
So crazy. And when you talk to voters who care about the border, do you tell them, hey, don't blame Kamala. She wasn't the border czar. That's a lie.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Kamala Harris is, she was the vice president for Joe Biden. I don't understand the rhetoric right now where there's this new energy where they're saying, oh, well, we're gonna change things up. At the end of the day, she was the vice president for Joe Biden, so she has to own all of the policies that led us to where we're at today.
Of course. I'm going to tweet it out right now. I've been thinking about it all day. Hashtag complicit, KAM. She's definitely involved. Thank you very much, Derrick Anderson. Good to talk to you. Best of luck, and we'll talk to you more ahead of Election Day. To the phones we go. Michael calling in from Midland now on line 1. Michael, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Mr. Michael. You there with me? Michael. Going once, going twice. And gone. No Michael. Sorry about that. Let's go to Rodney in Fairfax. He's on line 2. Rodney, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for taking my call. But
my pleasure.
After talking to hearing Derrick Anderson, I know the Vindman brothers claim to fame as the recording of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, how come nobody's talking about that they were born in Ukraine, and maybe it's conspiracy theory, but I know people pressure families.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody's mentioning that they're Ukrainian or if they have any connections to family in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it odd.
Well, yeah, and their party affiliation will tell you even more of that story, won't it? And and the fact that they're so deeply wedded to the deep state kind of really gives the whole game away about what they're up to. That's a legitimate question. They're Ukrainian-born, the Vindmans. Of course, there are people like Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, who is Ukrainian-born and thinks that Ukraine is a very corrupt place that we should stop giving money to. So there's some difference of opinion. Being Ukrainian-born does not dictate whether or not you are doing us ill, for sure. But
I agree with you on that.
That's a reasonable point to raise, Rodney.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like anybody's checking it.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to tell you that Derrick Anderson is going to be far better for America than Eugene Vindman. At the very least.
I agree. I fully agree.
Thank you, Rodney. I appreciate
you taking the time.
God bless you for the call. I appreciate that. Hey, there's something I want to share with you here in a minute. I'll give you the broad outlines right now. These border czar talking points that the media is running wild with right now. Will it shock you to find out the Democrats wrote them? Yeah, I don't know. Did we ever? I wonder if we ever launched it. I got to look at the Daily Caller. For a bit. We either talked about it just in our newsroom. We always write about this, or we actually created a series called Democrats Write the News, where like the White House would come out with some talking point, and then every news outlet would instantly start sharing it as if it was the gospel truth. Oh yeah, it's always been this way. Yeah, totally. Yeah, the Biden economy has been fantastic. The borders, there's no problem there. It's not a crisis. It's a challenge. Remember all of those? We got a new one. Kamala Harris was never the border czar. The document being handed around Capitol Hill right now to Democrats on what they're supposed to say if a Fox News reporter sticks a microphone in their face. Boy, it sounds familiar. We've got that. It came up in the White House press briefing, too. I'll hunt down that audio and share it with you next. Hey, good afternoon to you. 535 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Here's a clip I haven't seen. We're going to get to this border czar nonsense because the talking points are literally being handed out on Capitol Hill. Kamala Harris was never the border czar. Pass it on. It's just the best. I can't wait till that game of telephone gets to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. How is she going to handle that? Kamala Harris has never owned a car. No, that's not the talking point, stupid. Hey, have you heard this before? Former President Gerald Ford talking to a group of school children. And a little girl asks about the chances of becoming president of the United States. What would it take? What advice do you have for a young girl who would like to be president? Listen to this. This is apparently not artificial intelligence. This is Gerald Ford's actual answer.
Mr. Ford, what advice would you give a young lady wanting to become president of the United States?
Well, I hope we do have a young lady at some point become president of the United States. I can tell you how I think it will happen, because it won't happen in the normal course of events. Either the Republican or Democrat political party will nominate a man for president and a woman for vice president. And the woman and man will win. So you'll end up with a president a male, and a vice president, a female. And in that term of office of the president will die. And the woman will become president under the law or Constitution. And once that barrier is broken, from then on, men better be careful, because they'll have a hard time ever even getting a nomination in the future. But that's the way it's going to happen.
Holy cow. He's only off by one detail right now. That was very close. Oh, all right, Ford Stradamus. That was something else. All right, so that was a Gerald Ford clip. I saw that going around today. I was like, is this real? Apparently it is. And how cute is that little girl's voice? That was amazing. So there you go. That's a little look backwards, a trip through history, through the magic of the internet. Let's look at what's happening today now. As you're watching all these news outlets say to you that Kamala Harris was never the border czar. She had no responsibility whatsoever for the border. The border chaos is not her fault, yada, yada, yada. Well, it turns out that there's a piece of paper being handed out on Capitol Hill that sounds very familiar. In fact, here's what it says. This is being handed out to Democrats all around Capitol Hill. In fact, Fox News was got confirmation from a Democrat lawmaker today, Bobby Burak, pointing this out on X. A Democrat lawmaker confirmed to Fox that Democrats have received a piece of paper with talking points and lies about how to discuss Kamala Harris's role at the southern border. They're already using the exact lines, Bobby points out. Here are the lines. Here's what they're claiming. Vice President Harris was never, in all capital letters, appointed, in quotes, border czar. There has never been such a position. It doesn't exist, they say. Border czar title invented by Republicans, and press repeats, was not asked to lead on the administration's immigration or border enforcement policies. Okay, so I'm sorry, just to pause for a moment. What does it mean to be a point person? If you're the point person on the border, doesn't that kind of suggest that you're sort of, in layman's terms, what's the phrase? The border czar? Aren't you the border czar? Well, yeah, of course. POTUS tasked her to lead admin's diplomatic root causes strategies in Central America, not border policy, tasked with addressing push factors driving migrants to flee these countries, yada, yada, yada. They're trying to say, well, it was a very narrow thing. It was literally just stopping the people from crossing our border. But beyond that, it really wasn't the border. That doesn't make any sense. Here's Joe Biden back in 2021.
I've asked her, the VP, today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. We're going to need help in stemming the movement.
I just want to take you back in time, too. Remember in 2021, the primary populations that were coming through our southern border were from those Northern Triangle countries, coming through Mexico. So that's why they were talking about that specifically at the time. When Kamala Harris was made the border czar, what happened after that? Well, she didn't slow down the migration from there. In fact, we got illegal migration from all across the planet after that. If anything, she made everything worse. So here's Joe Biden saying, I've assigned her to tackle this border problem.
Stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border.
And here's Kamala Harris saying, thank you for making me border czar.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and for having the confidence in me. And there's no question that this is a challenging situation. As the president has said, there are many factors that lead president to leave these countries. And while we are clear that people should not come to the border now, we also understand that we will enforce the law. And that we also, because we can chew gum and walk at the same time, must address the root causes that cause people to make the trek, as the president has described, to come here.
Oh, so they're doing both. It's not just root causes, it's everything, because you can chew gum and walk at the same time, she said. Okay. Now, you ready for this? So the final talking point on this stupid piece of paper they're handing out on Capitol Hill is fun with statistics. That's what we call this. Because it goes right to the point I just made, which is, remember, In 2021, we had dramatic illegal migration from the Northern Triangle countries. Since then, it's gotten so much worse because now every country on the planet is coming in. Here's the talking point that Democrats are being handed today. Border crossings by migrants from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, the countries in Vice President Harris's root causes portfolio, have decreased dramatically in recent years. Oh, really? They've decreased. What's your evidence? They say in 2023, they made up 22% of all border crossings, down from 41% in 2021. Now, you don't have to think too deeply about what they're doing here. What that means is there's been a massive explosion in illegal migration from every other country on planet Earth. They want credit for that. So we went from 41% of all of the illegal crossings being Northern Triangle to now it's just 22%. Yeah, but the number's so much worse. This is so crazy. And you're saying Kamala deserves credit for this? So you want her, don't blame her, and she deserves credit for the border? What are you even saying? They're saying, don't pick on her. That's what they're saying. Today in the White House press briefing, Peter Doocy asked, who's handing out this stupid piece of paper? Corinne, please tell us.
Thank you, Corinne. Democrats on Capitol Hill are being handed this card with talking points about the vice president and the border. Do you know who's handing this out?
I have no idea. You probably should ask her campaign.
So,
well, there you go. So she immediately, because she's not bright, she immediately says it's probably her campaign. It's probably Kamala's campaign. So the campaign is handing out talking points on Capitol Hill to all these Democrats, which, by the way, the same talking points are being repeated by every news outlet that carries the water of the American left. So it's the campaign. Here you go. She's the White House press secretary just admitting, well, quite obviously, this is a political operation.
The first one says Vice President Harris was never appointed border czar. There's never been such a position. It doesn't exist. Why are Democrats so sensitive about the vice president and the border?
Why are Republicans so sensitive about actually not owning up to them getting in the way?
What is this I'm rubber, you're glue response?
Border deal. Why? Why won't they own up to that? Why won't they own up to the last president told them not to move forward? Yeah. It was a bipartisan deal.
Can't believe Republicans got rid of 94 different protections for the American border within the first 100 days that Biden was in office.
Just right there, available to them, and they voted twice against it. Twice against it. Why are they so sensitive to moving forward and actually dealing on an issue that majority of Americans care about?
Yeah, why won't they do amnesty already? Why won't they just let foreign nationals become American citizens and vote in our elections? How dare those Republicans?
Dealing with what's going on at the border.
Do you think that the border would be less of a talking point now if there was less migration to the border, say if somebody had addressed root causes of migration sooner?
Wait, hold on a second.
I love how he's like, let me explain this to you like you're 5. You think maybe the problem is that our border's out of control?
Did you not hear the beginning of I know there were a lot of toppers, but one of the toppers, I talked about what we're seeing at the border.
Topper.
It's down by 55%. Not because of Republicans in Congress and what they did. It's because of what this president and this vice president did. He moved forward and took actions to deal with what's going on at the border. Republicans continue to block getting resources to the Border Patrol agents. They continue to block actually dealing.
You know, if they were proud of what was happening on the border, you know what would happen right now? Well, one, they wouldn't care at all that we were calling Kamala the border czar. At all. They'd be like, yeah, of course she's the border czar. She's great. She's really great. She's the border czar. They would have the Border Patrol chief standing next to Corinne. He'd be up there talking. Yep, everything's going great. All my agents are really appreciative of all the support they're getting. We've done a great job locking down the border. Things are dramatically improved now. It's just going wonderfully. We're interdicting all these drugs. All the human trafficking is stopped. We don't have foreign nationals pouring across our border. If things were actually good, you'd bring out the people who know. The Border Patrol Union would probably be endorsing Joe Biden right now. Man, what a great job he's done. He's really fixed everything. You know what they actually say about this subject? We are not endorsing the Democrat, and we would never endorse the Democrat, they said, back when it was Biden. It was like 2 weeks ago. It was during the debate, right? Biden said, the Border Patrol Union supports me, and the Border Patrol Union instantly posted to social media, no chance in hell. No, there's no way we're supporting you. We will never support you, they say, given what, and hard to blame them. for a bunch of reasons. One of them is that these guys aren't actually managing the border. They're processing people in. Additionally, when the going got tough, Joe Biden crapped all over the Border Patrol. When you had Haitian migrants pouring in, do you remember all this? And these mounted Border Patrol agents on horseback tried to stop people from pouring into our country and used their training to do it, spinning reins around, these types of things on the back of these horses. They were not whipping anybody. A lie started getting told in the media. The Biden administration instantly took a hold of it, advanced it. Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden condemned Border Patrol agents who were literally just doing their jobs and doing them well. Condemned them. And so if I'm the Border Patrol Union, yeah, no, not at all. There's not a chance on this side of Hades that I'm going to endorse you for president of the United States after what you did to our country's borders and to the men and women who are tasked with protecting them. Not a chance. And for the White House press secretary to get up there today and be like, oh, actually, everything's great on the border. And then simultaneously for these people to claim, but we're not allowed to talk about Kamala's role in it. So the border's fine or it's not? Which talking point are you going with now?
Within the immigration system. So yes, we are going to debunk the false characterization of the vice president. She was not a border czar. And it's not just us. Independent fact checkers have said the same thing, that did not exist.
Independent Democrat fact checkers have said the same thing that we are saying. The same exact thing.
That is not true.
And a different topic. Russia and China are teaming up in the skies near Alaska for the first time ever.
Yep.
Are you getting a sense yet, based on everything that's been going on, that some of America's enemies might be looking at what's happening here and think there's nobody in charge?
So let me just say this. There is very much someone in charge. The president is the president until the end of his term. So that statement is certainly false. And we have seen the president bring together our allies and partners.
Yeah.
He reinvigorated NATO. He got more than 50 countries behind Ukraine to make sure that they
our
were
enemies are doing air shows in U.S. airspace right now. They're floating around, having a great time, writing their names in the sky. And Corinne is up there. Yeah, but Joe Biden's, he got this covered. We've had, how many episodes do we need like this? We don't even need. The Chinese floated a full-blown spy balloon clear across the United States of America. And after they had done all of their intel gathering, Biden's like, okay, I guess you can shoot it down now that it's over the coast. It's like, if he was with it then, he's just an idiot. Or a sellout, I don't know what he's doing, but it's not protecting us. He's like, we'll just let the spy balloon cross first. Then we'll shoot it down. It's 5:50 now. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got Tom in Cincinnati now, line one. Tom, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, Goebbels would be crowing at the way that this media spews the kind of propaganda that they do.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. If Kamala was not the border czar, then why did she go to the Northern Triangle and visit El Salvador and say that we needed to spend billions down there to create jobs for them so they don't come across our border?
Yeah, exactly. It's just obvious evidence that they're lying now. I mean, it's just constant lies. Also, even that was a lie at the time. It really wasn't to, in the end, get control of the border. In some sense, this is a weird inversion of everything, but in some sense, they're telling the truth that she wasn't in any serious way tackling the border. It was just about giving away more of our money in these countries, which never goes well. It just leads to more corruption, Tom, doesn't it?
Yep, that's exactly right.
But no question, though, that they assigned her with the border portfolio, and everyone was calling her the border czar at the time, including all the corporate press, and now not so much anymore, now that the Democrat talking points have gone out, literally being handed out on Capitol Hill. You're not supposed to say that. There's a great piece of video today. The New York Post's Stephen Nelson, who is wonderful, an old colleague of mine. He's the White House reporter for the New York Post, and he saw Dr. Kevin O'Connor, the White House physician, walking up near the White House today, on the White House grounds, and he was the only reporter to go up to him and begin asking him questions. Where is everyone else? Where is every other reporter to question whether or not the president is competent enough to continue in this job. Here is Stephen Nelson and his brief exchange with Dr. Kevin O'Connor. Got a couple questions in as they were walking together.
Are you Dr. O'Connor?
I don't know.
How's the president's health?
I don't know. The first thing he says is a lie. I love, maybe he's going to say, I was just joking. How's the president's health, says Stephen Nelson.
President's health?
It's excellent. Thanks.
It is? Are you going to come to the briefing room to address us? Probably not. Could that change before the end of his term? And how is this?
He said, I hope not. I hope not.
Mental cognition.
It's excellent.
It's excellent. Is there a reason you didn't perform a cognitive test on him?
You don't need to. He's here every day.
He's good every day?
What kind of doctor is this? No need to? He's here every day? All sorts of people with mental failings are here, wherever here is.
About the speculation about Parkinson's disease or a related condition. Dr. O'Connor, is there anything to that speculation that there might be something related to Parkinson's that he has?
No, he's good.
Okay.
No, he's
And the
good.
specialist's visit to the White House, does that have anything to do with that concern?
No, he's seen him 3 times. Yeah, my letter was clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and he walks off. Only Stephen Nelson. He's the only guy. There's reporters everywhere, by the way. There's cameras, reporters. They're all walking past. I got to go. I got lunch to get to. What do they call the 3 martini lunch? We got to make them extra dirty. The great one, Mark Levin, is up next here on WMAL. Stay with us for that, and we'll keep tracking the ever-shifting Orwellian narratives coming out about how great Kamala is and how she's not guilty of anything, especially that southern border. The border? She hasn't even been to Europe.